office with Miss Cruz and I, and he's just gonna be recording, so we will.
Hello everybody, my name is Tammy and this is my partner Rhonda, and we are from Indiana Donor Network / Donate Life Indiana. Donate Life Indiana is responsible for educating the whole state of Indiana about organ and tissue donation. Indiana Donor Network is responsible to facilitate all donation that happens in the state of Indiana. This is a little video about the organization that we work for.
The Indiana Donor Network is the link between those who are waiting for a life-saving organ transplant and our donor families. And so we facilitate organ, tissue, and eye recovery in the state of Indiana, and we work with donor families in their darkest hour of grief to bring light to the situation and hope to families who are waiting for a life-saving organ transplant. From working with our donor families, to providing aftercare for 13 months, to working with the general public and trying to educate them about the need to be a donor. We also have clinical staff that work every day to ensure that the life-saving organ or tissue transplant gets to where it needs to go. Our mission is to save and enhance lives through organ, tissue, and eye donation and transplantation. And so we live our values surrounded by our mission every single day.
Okay, so how many of you guys have already been to the driver's license branch and received your first driver's license or permit? Okay, so when you go there, they ask you a really important question, right? Does anybody know what question I'm talking about?
Would you like to be a donor?
Yes, absolutely, and that's what Blue's all excited here. Let everybody know when he went, they asked him and he said yes. So he got that really cool heart on this license. What does it mean to be a donor? What are they asking you? Would you like to be a donor?
To donate for your body and your health.
To donate your organs and your tissues at the end of your life. So not today, not tomorrow, hopefully not anytime soon, right? But at the end of your life, when they've done everything they possibly can do to save your life, would you like to donate your organs and tissues to help somebody else? So that's what we are talking about today, okay? Organs and tissues. Now, I know this is a JAG class, so you guys talk a lot about careers, right? So I kind of made a little path here to show you how my career started. I started way back when I was in before high school. When I was in middle school, I started volunteering at a nursing home because my grandmother was a very firm believer in people are scared of what they don't know, and she thought a lot of teenagers were scared of older people. So she wanted me to volunteer my time so that I would not be scared. So I did that. And then all through high school, I worked as a nurse's aide because as soon as I was able to be a nurse's aide, I went and got my certification so that I could do that. And then I went into college, and then from college I started my family, and then I started my career working in physicians' offices, okay? So I always knew that I liked the medical career, and so I started off in physicians' offices and worked in several physicians' offices. From there, I went into transplant at Lutheran Hospital in Fort Wayne. I became their transplant administrator there. So I ran their kidney and their heart program there, which was very exciting, very rewarding to me because I actually came from a family that had to go through transplant. My father had to have a kidney transplant, which was donated to him by his brother. So it was very exciting. From there, I actually went into teaching. So I went to a career center and I started teaching students that wanted to go into healthcare careers. And from there, I fell into my dream job. And the reason I put all this in there is because I want you guys to understand, when you start one place, sometimes you never know where you're going to end up. I never in a million years would have guessed that I would be at Indiana Donor Network, taking all of my experiences that I had had, all my education that I had, and putting it all together so that I could do what I do today, and that is educate the whole state of Indiana about organ and tissue donation. Literally, it's the best job I've ever had. But I wouldn't have been here today if I hadn't gone through all these other experiences. Rhonda herself is in the healthcare field. I'll let her tell a little bit about herself.
I've actually been a registered nurse I practiced nursing for 30-some years, and retired 6 years ago. But then became a Donor Hero mom. So now what I do is I go around and I talk to high schools, middle schools, colleges, and career centers and whatever, and talk to the students about organ and tissue donation.
At Indiana Donor Network, we have a lot of different careers. We need all of you guys, to be honest. So we have careers that start with absolutely no college degree at all, just your high school diploma, okay? All the way up to your doctoral degree, all right? So anywhere in between there, you can find jobs. So we have things like what we call our Vital Link, which is Vital Link is where everything starts. That's where all those first calls come in, where the whole donation process actually starts. We actually have pilots that work for our organization, our TX jets that fly those organs from one state to another so that people can actually get those transplants done. Our organ and tissue recovery service, that is the team that goes to those different hospitals and they recover those organs and tissues so that we can save lives every day. Our hospital services, they work with each hospital in the donation process, educating them and helping that process improve in any way that we need to. Our funeral director liaison, that is somebody who works with all the funeral homes in the state of Indiana to again see how we can make everything work smoothly for our donor families and our funeral homes. Our community development, that's what I do. We're out educating everyone in the state of Indiana. Creative services, they make all of our commercials and things like that to get the word out there. Our supply chain, they make sure that they keep track of everything that goes in and out of our building so we always know what we have and that we have enough of everything so that we can save lives every day. Our process improvement team, that's a very important part of our team, sorry. They're always making sure that every T is crossed, every I is dotted, because donation is one of the top fields in the fact that everything has to be quality. Everything has to follow all the guidelines. We cannot go with outside the guidelines at all. Marketing, obviously every organization has to have a marketing team, right? So that's important. Finance. You don't have finance, somebody's not getting a paycheck, so you're not gonna be able to run a business for very long, right? And you're not gonna be able to pay your bills. And then our aftercare services are the people that work with all of our donor families for at least a year after donation and up to as long as those families want to work with them, helping them through their grieving process with education and materials and just somebody to talk to. So we have all these different careers at Indiana Donor Network. Can anybody tell me what this place is right here?
Lucas Oil Stadium.
Lucas Oil Stadium. We put this up here because we want to put some numbers in perspective for you. All right, anybody ever been to Lucas Oil Stadium? It's a really big place, isn't it? Really big. Lots and lots of people can be there. For those of you who've not, all these little specks you see along the sides and in the back, those are people's heads, okay? So a lot of people can fit in there. There's over 100,000 people right now on the waiting list for an organ transplant. That is enough people to fill Lucas Oil Stadium completely full capacity and still have a very large overflow of people out in the parking lot that wouldn't be able to fit in. Almost enough to fill it again. That's a lot of people waiting on transplant, right? Every 8 minutes, another person is added to that list. That's an average of 180 people a day that are put on that waiting list. Sadly, the number 17 comes up because 17 people die on that list every day. So 17 people died yesterday, another 17 will die today, and another 17 tomorrow because we just don't have enough available organs out there for all the people that need to have an organ transplant. One person at the end of your life, if you're signed up to be an organ and tissue donor, you can help save or enhance the lives of 83 people. One person can help 83 people. Now, how do you think we come up with this number? How come one person helped 83? How do you think one person can do that? The
Because
idea?
there's multiple tissues and multiple organs.
Yes, absolutely, positively, yep. 8 lives are saved through organ donation, and another 75 lives through tissue donation. That's pretty amazing, right? I hope that I can help that many people. Well, let's see if you guys can tell me what organs we're talking about in 30 seconds or less, okay? So I'm gonna set a little timer up here, all right? When I say go, raise your hand, and if you say one of the right 8 organs, I'm gonna have you stand up and Ron is gonna get you a piece of candy, okay? Ready, set, and
Lungs,
lungs, stand up.
liver,
Liver, stand up.
kidney,
Kidney, stand up.
heart.
Heart, stand up.
Did anybody say lungs yet?
Yes, I think she said lungs, yes.
Skin?
Nope, we're just talking organs right now.
Heart,
I think somebody said that, didn't they? Oh, yeah, okay. So I think we're just missing two. Part of the digestive system, long and windy.
intestines,
Yes, small intestines. And then if you're having any problems, and you have to, and they say that you're diabetic, you have to have insulin. What organ are we talking about with that?
gallbladder,
No, starts with a P.
Pancreas?
Yes, your pancreas. Very good. So we said the heart, the lungs, there's two of those, right? The liver, the kidney, there's two of those, and the pancreas and intestines. Those are the 8 life-saving organs that we are talking about at the end of your life, okay? And a little fun fact, a few of those organs can actually be donated while you're still living if you choose to. What organs can we donate while we're still living and still live a long, healthy life?
liver, and your kidney.
Those are
Parts
two.
of- parts of your-
Yep, because we only need one kidney to live healthy, right? So we can donate one. The liver is like a lizard's tail. When you break off a lizard's tail, what happens?
Goes back.
Goes back. That's exactly what happens with the liver. So I can donate part of my liver to somebody else, and the part that I donate to somebody else will rejuvenate itself within me, and the part that I give to somebody else will do the same within them. So in about 4 months, we both have fully functioning livers. Now there's one other one. Does anybody know what the last one is? No?
Oh, lung.
Lungs.
Yes. We can do partial lobe of a lung. So those are the organs that you can donate while you're still living and still live a long, healthy life. Now let's talk about the tissues. You guys may already know somebody who's received the gift of tissue. Anybody know anybody who's had a sports injury and had to have their ACL repaired? Okay. What tissue up there in green would they need?
Tendons,
Tendons, right, very good. What about if somebody was in a bad fire? What tissue would they need? Yep, skin. What if I had to have neck surgery, back surgery, major dental work? Which, yes, very good. And as we start to get older, especially if people are smokers, they'll start to have a lot of problems with poor circulation in their legs. Very good, yes, veins. So we said bone, skin, veins, tendons. The last one up there is valves. When we're talking about valves, what we're talking about is cardiac valves, okay? So heart valve replacement surgeries. What age group of people do you think would need to have heart valve replacement surgeries the most?
60 and up.
60 and up. Any other guesses?
50 up.
50 and up? Everybody agree with that? How about birth to 19? Yeah, birth to 19. That's you guys, right? You guys all fit into that group. And the reason I bring that up is I want you guys to understand, when we're talking about transplant does not discriminate. It can happen to anybody at any time. Doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, what color you are, it can happen to anybody. It can happen to somebody in this room right here today at some point in your life, or somebody that you love. All right, so that's why it's so important that we're educating everyone in the state of Indiana about what tissue donation is all about. Now, and organ donation. Now, when you hear people talk about donation, you will hear them say organ, tissue, and a lot of times you hear them say eye. But it's actually not the whole eye. It's actually just this outside protective covering of the eye we call the cornea, okay? So this cornea has to stay in this shape and it has to stay clear like this. If it's not in this shape or clear like this due to infection or injury, you will have what is called cornea blindness. And cornea blindness is real, guys. There's a lot of things you can't do anymore if you have cornea blindness. Because with cornea blindness, what happens is you can still see big things, you can see the edges of things, you can see colors of things, but you can't see all the fine detail, okay? So everything kind of just gets blurry and goes together if you have cornea blindness. So there's a lot of things you can't do anymore if you have cornea blindness. You can't drive, right? Because you don't want somebody driving towards you that they, really can't see what you are, right? And you know those devices we all carry around with us everywhere we go, they're so important to our lives, we cannot function without them. What am I talking about? Right. Take a phone. It's not very big, right? put a picture on that small screen, and then take all the fine detail away. It's gonna kind of look like a blur, right? So, no more TikToks, no more Snapchats, none of that anymore, because you wouldn't be able to see that on your phone to be able to do it. As a matter of fact, this is how you would see things. What's that a picture of? Anybody know? Just guess, holler it out. Popcorn.
Fruit bowl?
What is it?
Fruit bowl?
Fruit bowl. A little difficult to see that, right? Without that fine detail. Here's another one for you.
That's a person.
A person?
Yeah. That's a.
Man or rock? The rock. Very good, very good. Yes, but it's a little bit more difficult to see what these pictures are without that fine detail. One last one for fun.
Popcorn.
Popcorn?
French
That
fries.
looks like
French
a
fries?
French fries.
can.
French fries.
She was right, popcorn, right? Yeah, but it's a little bit more difficult because you didn't see all this fine detail, so that yellow and that red just kind of blur together, right? So, the whole point of this is to let you guys understand, it doesn't matter if it's an organ, if it's a tissue, or if it's cornea. For the person that needs to have that transplant, it's all very, very important, isn't it? We now have Rhonda. Rhonda is a very special part of our team. Rhonda is what we call an advocate. She's a donor family advocate, and she has Jennifer's story of hope to tell you.
So this is my daughter Jennifer. She's the youngest of my 3 kids. You can see in the left-hand picture there that she loved music. So she started playing saxophone the end of her 5th grade year, played it all the way up through high school. While she was in high school, she was in the pep band, jazz band, concert band, but her favorite was actually the marching band. You can see in the other picture there, she loved the companion animals. She loved cats and dogs. Cats are actually her favorite though. I think every stray cat or dog that stopped by the house there in the neighborhood got lots of love and some pets from Jennifer. So at one point when she was in school, she was asked to write an essay as to where she saw herself in 20 years. Well, she was just like everybody else. She hoped to be married. She wanted to have 1 or 2 kids. And she wanted to be an animal caretaker. She wanted to help make sure those cats and dogs lived good, long, and healthy lives. She also wanted to have 3 cats and even had names picked out for those 3 cats already. There's cat number 1 that she had her senior picture taken with. So the night before she was to go to the DMV to get her learner's permit, I sat down with her and I told her, I said, now Jennifer, I said, before you go, I said, I just want to make sure you understand what that question means they're going to ask you. And that question is, would you like to be an eye, organ, and tissue donor? And she's like, well, yeah, I know what that means. So then why wouldn't I? She goes, if something happens to me, I'm not going to need them. It's like, okay. I filed that back here in the back of my brain, but never once thinking that that was going to be a decision that was going to be coming into play relatively soon. So when she graduated high school, she headed to Fort Wayne. She attended International Business College and had enrolled into their vet tech program. She wanted to be an animal nurse. So it was an accelerated course. She was going to graduate with her associate's degree in veterinary technology in about 18 months. The classes were divided up into 8-week sections, and at the beginning of each 8-week section, they went to the local shelters, got cats and dogs, brought them into the college kennel there, and those animals were what the students used to perfect their skills they would need once they got out there working for a veterinarian. At the end of each 8-week course, those animals did not go back to the shelter, but instead they were put up for adoption, and students got first dibs at adopting those animals. Well, where Jennifer lived, she wasn't able to have pets, but that didn't stop her though. So it happened that there was a 13-year-old cat named Fluffy that came into the college kennel there, belonged to the grandmother of the lady who oversaw the kennel. She used to live independently, had to go into assisted living, and Fluffy couldn't go with her. So the family thought was like, well, let's just bring Fluffy here, and surely one of the students will adopt her, and everything will be great, right? Nobody wanted her because she's so old. They're thinking, like, why do I want to adopt one that's probably going to die relatively soon? Well, it didn't stop Jennifer. She wanted her, but of course where she lived, she couldn't have pets, so guess what she did? She called me. Mom, there's a cat here named Fluffy, and Fluffy needs a home. Can you take her? Nope. Jennifer, I got way too many cats already, and I don't need any more. Oh, but Mom, you know, Fluffy's so old, so nobody wants her, but she really, truly doesn't belong here, and she gets so scared in that kennel when the dogs bark, so please, can't you give her a home? I said, no, and I was standing my ground. I wasn't taking any more. Well, she knew what to do. She had a cell phone. She knew how to use it. So what she did is she took a close-up shot of Fluffy's face, which I still have on my phone today, sent it to me along with a text that said, now how could you not love that furry face? Yeah, I'm a sucker for them furry faces. So Fluffy came home to live with me, bringing my cat total up to 6 in my house. So I know that if Jennifer would have been able to take them all home to live with her, I'm sure she would have. But she was loving it there. She had put her life's dream into motion. She couldn't wait to get out there and graduate and start working for a veterinarian. She was seeing her life's dream coming within reach. Unfortunately, only after being there for 5 months, all of that changed. So January 23rd of 2009, at 5:05 in the morning, my cell phone rang. I pick it up and I hear, "Mom, there's a fire and we can't get out." It's like, what? And she said it again. She goes, "There's a fire and we can't get out." She goes, "When we look out, we see a smoking orange." She goes, "We don't know how to get the window open." Not sure what that meant. I don't know as if the heat had expanded the window to where they couldn't get the window up. I don't know if they couldn't figure out the lock. All I know is that they had nothing to break the window open with because the furniture in there was way too big, heavy, and bulky for them to try to pick it up, throw it through the window to break the window out and jump out. So what they had decided to do was to go to the furthest point away from the fire, which ended up being to an interior bathroom. And what I mean by interior bathroom means there were no windows because it was apartments on the other side. So they had to wait for the fire department to get there, beat down the flames enough in order to make entry to try and rescue all 3 girls. By the time that happened though, none of them were breathing and none of them had heartbeats. So one by one, each one was rescued and intensive CPR was initiated and they were transported to the nearest hospital. I lived 80 miles away, so it took me quite some time before I was able to make my way over this way in order to get to the hospital where Jennifer had been taken. Once I finally arrived, was not allowed to see her right away, I had to wait. But when my time finally came, I was able to go in and see her. They first took me off into a small room beside hers where she was, where I sat down with the doctor and the other hospital staff, and they told me what had been going on. The doctor looked at me and he said, he says, "We worked on her for a long time doing CPR. He said, well over 30 minutes. There will be brain damage. He said, we don't know how much and we won't know till she wakes up. But I really don't expect her to survive." So once I finally got myself pulled together, they took me in to see her. So she was on a ventilator, which was pushing the air in and out of her lungs. She had IV lines hooked up to her. She had so many IV lines hooked up to her, more than what I thought could be hooked up to one person, and all in use at the same time, and I'm actually a retired nurse. She had a feeding tube. Several times they'd put her in the hyperbaric chamber, hoping that the high levels of oxygen under pressure would be enough for her brain to get the oxygen that it needed in order for her to survive. They were doing bronchial lavages to try and clean that smoke and that soot out of her lungs. With those multiple IV lines, they were giving her all different kinds of medications. Medications to help keep her blood pressure up. Medications to try and counteract everything that was going wrong with her body systems because of what she had been through. So they'd been doing this all through that day and all through the night. But by the next morning, the doctor came in and he looked at me and he says, he says, I really think she's gone. So what we need to do is to do a brain flow study to see if there's any blood flow to the brain. So it's going to take 2 hours to get the nuclear isotopes here, 2 hours to do the test, and then we'll have the results. So I haven't been on the phone with her, or my conversation was short-lived before my phone went silent. Eventually realizing I was hearing her moan with each breath that she took, before again, my phone went silent. To finally hearing the firefighter as he took 4 breaths through his mask when he had finally found her, and then to her point of rescue, I knew that time frame had been way too long for the outcome to be what we had hoped for. So I looked at her nurse and I told her, I says, if worst comes to worst, you need to know that she's a donor. So the brain flow study was done and they pulled us all together. The doctor looked at me and he said, he says, I have done a physical neuro exam on Jennifer. And he said, I got absolutely no response from her whatsoever. We did do the brain flow study and it shows there is no blood flow to the brain. I did the second physical neuro exam on her. I got the same results. So I pronounced her dead at 2:30. So what happens is when the body is deprived of oxygen for 5 to 6 minutes, the brain cells start to die. And as the brain cells start to die, the brain itself begins to swell. Well, as the brain tries to swell, there's nowhere for it to go because you've got that hard skull that's there. So as it continues to try and swell, it eventually just kind of squeezes in upon itself and it cuts all the blood flow off to the brain. and the brain itself dies. And once the brain dies, there is no coming back from that whatsoever. But because she was on a ventilator, which was pushing the air in and out of her lungs, the heart, the type of muscle, has continued to beat. Had they turned that ventilator off, she would have made no attempt to take a breath on her own, and her heart would have stopped. So she remained on the ventilator, then, which gave us time to sit down with Indiana Donor Network. So what we did was what we call a life review. We went over her medical history, her social history. You know, was she a smoker? Was she a drinker? Was she a drug user? What kind of disease processes did she have? So we found that during the extensive CPR process, the heart was too badly damaged, so we couldn't donate her whole heart, but her skin, her heart valves and other skin and tissue we could. The lungs, due to the smoke inhalation, were also too badly damaged that the lungs could not be donated either. She had a metabolic syndrome called polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS for short. One of the main symptoms with that is called insulin resistance. What that means is the pancreas is still producing insulin, but her body, for whatever reason, would not utilize that insulin like it should. And when she was tested a few years prior, they had found that her pancreas is having to produce 4 times the normal amount of insulin to try and keep her blood sugars where they needed to be. And so since the pancreas had been so overworked for so long, they decided the pancreas was not a good organ to be donated either. So just her 2 kidneys and her liver were the 3 out of those 8 organs that we were able to donate. It was also at that point that all financial responsibility stopped with us and was transferred over to Indiana Donor Network. The only thing we paid for was just all life-saving measures to try and get her to survive. So she stayed in the same room, same hospital staff, just 2 additional Indiana Donor Network staff who continued to monitor her, making sure that something then didn't happen that would rule her out from being able to be an organ donor, like signs of infection setting in. Gave them time to find those 3 potential recipients for the 3 organs we were able to donate, get them to the nearest hospital that they needed to be at in order to receive those precious gifts, and then also to get through that final testing to make sure that yes, indeed, they were a good enough match for each one of those organs we were able to donate. This took place all through the rest of that day, all through the night, and most of the next day. Once everybody was in place, all that final testing was done, everything was a go. About an hour and a half before the recovery surgery, they'd posted a note on Jennifer's door asking for privacy, giving us time to say our final goodbyes. And then at 5:15 in the afternoon, they had taken her to surgery to recover those precious gifts, and we went home. So 6 months later, I decided I wanted to write to all 3 of her recipients because I wanted them to know who Jennifer was and what she was like. So the first person we got to meet was Betty. So Betty was in her early 60s, had been on the transplant list waiting for a kidney for almost 5 years. Transplant took place, she healed well. She'd been working at an egg farm in southern Indiana for over 30 years, decided to go back to work for a couple of years, and then retired. When she retired, she didn't want to do anything. I mean, she wanted to travel. So she had 2 family members who were willing to take her wherever she wanted to go because she couldn't see well enough to drive on her own. She wanted to travel all over the state of Indiana. She came up to northern Indiana where we lived because she wanted to see where Jennifer was born, where she lived, where she had worked, where she went to school, and also where she was buried. She wanted to meet the rest of our family, so we made that happen. We got to meet the rest of Betty's family and got to be very close to each other's family. This other picture here was one of the last pictures I actually have of Betty, because unfortunately 3 years ago, this past January, Betty died due to lung cancer. But she got an extra 13 years and 3 days following her transplant, and she lived every one of those days to the fullest. Next person we got to meet was Zach. So when Zach was in 8th grade at school, one day he came home and his mom said his legs looked like tree trunks because they were so swollen. They'd ended up at Riley Hospital, found out he had this rare disease that attacked his kidneys pretty much overnight and shut them down. So here he is, 8th grade at school, having to do dialysis. His initial dialysis had to be done 5 to 6 times a day. His mom told me she had to go to his school twice each day to do that dialysis. Eventually he was able to be put on a machine, but that machine had to run 9 hours, which meant he had to be home in bed and hooked up by 9 o'clock at night in order for it to run that 9 hours to be done by 6 o'clock in the morning so he could be unhooked to go to school. So this went on from the time he was in 8th grade till he became a junior in high school. When he got sick enough, he ended up being added to that transplant list. Fortunately for him, he was only on the transplant list for 3 months when he became a good match for Jennifer's left kidney. Transplant took place, he healed well. Today, he is doing very, very well. This past summer, he turned 33 years old, doing all those things he was not able to do when he was in school because he was so sick. One of those main things he likes to do is to play baseball and softball. So he plays on community teams around where he lives. He also loves cats almost as much as what Jennifer did. Middle picture there is him with his fur baby, Big Boy Rizzo, as he calls it. So the gentleman who got Jennifer's liver, his name was Dennis, and he was around the age of 50, found out he had liver cancer, and his only chance of survival was to get a new liver. Twice he was called up, thinking that they had livers that he was a good enough match for, but with that final testing, found that the match was not good enough. He had to go back home and wait again. Fortunately for him, Jennifer's liver was a good match. The transplant took place, he healed well. His wife's letter to me said they would be willing to trade pictures and to meet should I want to do that. But when I tried to follow up to get that to happen, emotionally they just weren't ready. It was still too much for them to deal with. So the only thing I could do was to follow up through Indiana Donor Network, but all I got was limited information because the proper paperwork wasn't signed. All I was told was that yes, he's still keeping his doctor's appointments, yes, he's still taking his meds, and he's doing well. Last time I followed up to see how well he was doing, I found he'd actually died in 2014. Don't know as to what, but I do know he had gotten 5 extra years to make memories with his family and friends that he wouldn't have had that transplant not taken place. So Jennifer was able to save the lives of 3 people with the 3 organs she was able to donate. Her roommate Renee was able to save the lives of 5 people with the 5 organs she was able to donate. And then her roommate Laura ended up with 10% brain function, which ruled her out from being able to be an organ donor. She lived about 20 days, then died. But upon her death, though, her family did donate her corneas, skin, tissue, and bone. So all 3 of them were 18, 19 years old, and all 3 of them were donors one way or another, saving and enhancing multiple lives for many years to come. I'll turn it back over to Tammy.
This is a little video about the culture at Indiana Donor Network.
At Indiana Donor Network, our values of thinking big and serving well and being remarkable are at the forefront of everything that we do across the entire organization.
First of all, we're a small department. You know, as flight departments go, we have 12 pilots. It's easier to have a good team atmosphere. Everyone knows each other. We all fly with each other, all the way from the manager down to our newest hire that just came on board.
Working at Indiana Donor Network, to me, is an opportunity to work in a culture of professionalism, but most of all, it's the ability to work with other team members who really understand what it means to be remarkable. In a 24/7 environment, we never lose sight of the fact that we have the potential to save lives.
When I first come in the door every day, walking through the halls, I mean, the energy is just the energy of purpose, all the way from the CEO on to the receptionist. That everybody really loves what they do, and I think it's really attributed to the cause.
You have the ability to work side by side with those who are just as passionate about working for our mission as you are. When we talk about our clinical teams, our community partner teams, our family and support teams, we are all on a daily basis committed to saving and enhancing lives through the gifts of organ, tissue, and cornea donation. To be able to serve together with one mission is what being remarkable is truly about.
People want to work somewhere where they feel valued and then they feel heard. And they also want to be somewhere where they truly feel like they can make a difference. That is Indiana Donor Network. When you walk in the halls and you pass people, you're passing people who are making a difference on a daily basis. It's pretty powerful stuff.
What now? You guys have heard all this information today. What now? How can you help? Talk to your family about organ and tissue donations. That is the most important thing that we can give you today, is talk to your family about organ and tissue donation. It's not a subject that people like to talk about all the time, and it's definitely not a subject that parents like to talk about with their kids. But it's important that those conversations happen at home, okay? So it's important for your parents to know what you're wanting to do with your life, and it's important for you to know what your parents are wanting to do, because it might be you one day that the medical staff are coming to and they're asking what were your parents' wishes. And we always want to make sure we do whatever each individual person's wishes are, right? And it's not a time at that point that you're thinking, oh no, would they or would they not want to be? So it's important that you have those conversations now and know what they would want. educate others about donation. Anytime you're educating others about donation, you are helping to save lives because you're spreading awareness. Think about signing up as an organ donor at the BMV or elsewhere. Guys, there's no right or wrong answer to that. There's not. It's whatever's in your heart. We're just here to educate you on what donation is all about. There's nobody's decision except for your own that matters, okay? Be an advocate for donation. That is what Rhonda is. She goes around with me to schools and events and tells people her story about how donation helped her family and helped them through the grieving process. You can also do a school project. If you want to do a school project, reach out to me. I can get you all the materials and resources you need to do a great school project. Run a registration drive. That's where you set up a table and at a sporting event, a band concert, or whatever you want to do, and you hand out brochures about organ and tissue donation to help educate people, and then we give you some fun giveaways to hand out to people too. The last one up there is Start a Soda Club. SODA stands for Student Organ Donor Advocates. That is you guys making a difference within your schools. It is a organization that is across the nation in high schools, graduate schools, and colleges. And it is just that. It's student-led, students out there making awareness within their school and their community about organ and tissue donation. Because it's student-led, you guys get to create whatever awareness you want to get that word out there. It's a great time. That's what all these students up here in these pictures are doing. They're from SODA chapters across Indiana. Where do you sign up? Well, we know you can sign up at the BMV, right? When you get your first permit. You can also do it when you get an ID card. And anytime you go in there to renew a driver's license, they're gonna ask you then. But not everybody goes to the BMV, right? So you can also do it at donatelifeindiana.org, or if you have an iPhone, you can do it on your health app. All these ways take less than 30 seconds to sign up. Thank you so much for having us today. Rhonda, and I appreciate you asking questions and participating in all that, everything. So does anybody have any questions, any final questions for Rhonda and I before we're done today?
Is there like an age limit? Like, do you have to be above a certain age to be able to be
Nope. Nope. Any age. Any age. Youngest age you can think of all the way up to the oldest age. The oldest donor right now is 103 years old, and that was a tissue donor, 103 years old. So a lot of times you'll hear people say, I'm too old, I'd love to, but I'm too old. Everything's old and used up on me. That's not true. That's not true. We always tell everybody, keep signing up, let the medical professionals decide at the end of your life what they can use. Any other questions? Great question. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people who aren't donors have this misconception about how they won't do everything to save your life and that they will just take your organs, but that's not true at all.
No, not true at all. The people that go into the medical field, they go into the medical fields to save lives.
Yeah.
They're always, always, always going to do everything they possibly can do to save somebody's life. When we're talking about donation, that heart on your license, there's no fear for it because they're always going to do everything they can save your life. We're talking about donation when they've done everything they possibly can and there's nothing left that they can do for somebody, just like with Rhonda's daughter. Right? They did everything they could and there was nothing left that they could do for her. Any other ones? Okay, well, we brought some things for you guys if you're interested. We have some great brochures to get those conversations started at home that have some facts on it. So those are great ways to talk to your parents about donation. We also have a brochure on careers. If you guys are interested in a career at Indiana Donor Network, there's a QR code that you can scan on the back, and it'll go to the different careers, and it tells you exactly what qualification, what education, and all that you would need for those types of careers. We have croc charms, if you guys are into crocs and like the little charms or gibbets, whatever you want to call them, on your croc. We have those. We have color changing pencils. We have some pens here, and then Rhonda's got in her hand some bracelets, okay? And those bracelets, if you put them on and you work the beads apart from each other, they'll fit you perfectly. If you put them on and you pull the strings tight like that, that looks kind of silly, huh? And it's how it goes. So let Rhonda and I know, and we can put them on there for you and get them on your wrist perfect for you, okay? And then also there's some candy up here. If you didn't get a piece of candy, grab a piece of candy. And again, thank you so much. And if there's any other questions that we can answer, please ask us as you come up here. Help yourself.
Thank you.